every day, more people are beginning to ask questions about substances that were once dismissed, feared, or misunderstood. Two of the most controversial among them are cannabis and psychedelics. Are they dangerous drugs or misunderstood tools? Are they medicine or threats to society? For decades, these substances have been placed on trial, not just in courts, but in media, in politics, and in the minds of the public. But how did we get here? And what do we really know? This episode explores the science, the stigma, the law, and the shifting views around cannabis and psychedelics. No agenda, no bias, just facts. Let's begin with where it all started. Both cannabis and psychedelics have deep roots in human history. Cannabis has been used for thousands of years, as medicine, as a spiritual aid, and even as a food source. Ancient texts from China, India, and Egypt describe its healing properties. Similarly, psychedelic substances like psilocybin mushrooms, ayahuasca, and peyote have been part of indigenous rituals across South America, Central America, and parts of Asia for centuries. These plants weren't feared, they were respected. They were used in healing ceremonies, religious rites, and for self-reflection. For many traditional cultures, they were seen as natural tools for understanding the mind and spirit. So when did things change? The shift began in the early 20th century, a time marked by political control, cultural shifts, and growing fear around altered states of consciousness. In the UK, cannabis was added to the Dangerous Drugs Act in 1928. In the US, the Marijuana Tax Act of 1937 heavily restricted its use, but these bans weren't always rooted in science. Political motives, racial discrimination, and media influence played major roles. For example, the American war on drugs in the 1970s wasn't just about health. It was also about silencing certain social groups and controlling narratives. Psychedelics followed a similar path. During the 1950s and 60s, scientists began exploring LSD and psilocybin for treating depression, alcoholism, and trauma. But the rise of the counterculture movement, with open psychedelic use and anti-government messaging, triggered political backlash. By the early 1970s, psychedelics were classified as dangerous and illegal in most Western countries. In the UK, both cannabis and most psychedelics remain classified as Schedule 1 under the misuse of drugs regulations, meaning they are considered to have no medicinal value. This classification has been widely criticized by researchers and health professionals. Despite legal restrictions, modern science has continued to explore these substances, and the results have been surprising. Let's start with cannabis. The plant contains compounds known as cannabinoids, the most well-known being THC and CBD. THC is the compound responsible for the high, but has also shown potential in managing pain, nausea, and muscle spasms. CBD, on the other hand, is non-psychoactive and has been used to treat anxiety, epilepsy, and inflammation. In the UK, medical cannabis was legalized in 2018 for limited conditions, like severe epilepsy and chemotherapy-induced nausea. However, access remains highly restricted, and most patients still rely on private prescriptions, often at high costs. Now onto psychedelics. Recent studies have shown that psilocybin, the active ingredient in magic mushrooms, may have major potential in treating depression, especially in people who haven't responded to other treatments. Clinical trials have also looked into its effects on PTSD, anxiety, and addiction. Organizations like Imperial College London and Johns Hopkins University have led some of the most advanced research in this field. Their findings suggest that psychedelics can help reset certain brain patterns, allowing people to process trauma and emotions in a new way, but always in a controlled, supervised setting. It's important to be clear, these are not miracle cures. The positive results come from carefully guided therapy, not recreational use. Safety, supervision, and proper screening are key. Public attitudes are slowly changing, but stigma still lingers. Much of the fear surrounding cannabis and psychedelics stems from outdated messaging and misinformation. Media coverage over the years has often linked cannabis to laziness, criminality, or mental illness, without offering context or balance. Psychedelics have been portrayed as dangerous, mind-altering substances that cause people to lose control. But data shows that the risks are often exaggerated. For example, alcohol and tobacco, both legal, are linked to far higher rates of addiction, hospital admissions, and deaths than either cannabis or psychedelics. Yet the public remains more accepting of those substances. This doesn't mean cannabis and psychedelics are harmless. They can carry risks, especially if used improperly or by people with certain health conditions. But when used responsibly, with medical guidance or in research settings, their danger appears far lower than many assume. So why does the stigma continue? One of the biggest barriers to progress is the law itself. In the UK, cannabis is still classified as a Class B drug under the Misuse of Drugs Act 1971. Possession can result in up to 5 years in prison, and supply or production can lead to 14 years. Psychedelics like LSD, DMT, and psilocybin are even more strictly controlled as Class A drugs. This legal framework creates a paradox. On one hand, scientists and medical experts are calling for research. On the other, the substances remain illegal to possess, limiting access and making studies difficult. There's also the issue of cost. In the UK, patients seeking medical cannabis often face private clinic fees, ranging from $150 to $300 per month. For many, that's unaffordable. Meanwhile, public access through the NHS is extremely rare. Psychedelics are even more restricted. At present, psilocybin-assisted therapy remains in trial stages, with no legal route for public use, even in a medical setting. There are also cultural barriers. The association of these substances with counterculture, criminality, or hippie movements has left a lasting mark. Changing public opinion takes time and clear education. The media has played a major role in shaping how the public views cannabis and psychedelics, for better and worse. In the past, newspaper headlines linked cannabis to psychosis and psychedelics to madness or death. Films and TV shows often reinforced these ideas with dramatic or comedic portrayals. This created fear, often without fact. But in recent years, media coverage has started to shift. Mainstream outlets like BBC, The Guardian, and Channel 4 have run more balanced stories about the medical potential of these substances. Documentaries have explored personal stories of healing, and some celebrities have spoken openly about using psychedelics in therapeutic settings. Still, misinformation persists, especially on social media. Some content glorifies substance use without showing the risks. Others spread false claims about miraculous results. The truth lies somewhere in the middle, and it's up to responsible content creators to help bridge that gap. The conversation is evolving. Slowly, more people are asking thoughtful questions rather than reacting with fear or judgment. But big changes take time. Legal reform, scientific research, public education, and open discussion all have to work together. That means recognizing the mistakes of the past while building better policies for the future. Cannabis and psychedelics are not for everyone, and they're not the answer to every problem. But they deserve to be understood for what they are, not what people were once told they were. The real challenge is to find balance between caution and curiosity, science and policy, risk and potential. Because when it comes to our health, our minds, and our future, shouldn't we explore every possible path with honesty and care?